Okay, so we have our mung beans here, and they soaked overnight, about 12 hours, and we've got them in our 16-ounce cur jar, wide mouth, and you can see that we have the lid on top with the stainless steel screen in place. Okay, so they've started their sprouting process, and I'm going to remove the lid and pour out some of the sprouts so you can see that they've started sprouting. Sorry about that. Okay, so they'll probably be done sprouting in about 2 or 3 hours. And the reason I say that is because you want your sprouts when just a tiny little tail has started to sprout. This one, you can see, maybe. Tiny little tail. Can't really see it. That's when it has the most amylase in it. Amylase is the digestive enzyme that breaks down the starch. Parrots do not produce amylase in their beaks like humans do in their mouth. Parrots don't begin producing amylase until lower down in the digestive tract near their pancreas in the endocrine system. And this is one of the reasons we do want to sprout, so that parrots can begin to break down their starches through the sprouting process, eating sprouted foods with amylase in it, so that their endocrine system doesn't have to work so hard. It still has to work, okay, because we're not feeding them highly processed foods where it's already pre-digested. We're feeding them foods that their system has to work at digesting. But we're helping them because we're feeding them foods with digestive enzymes in it. Live foods, okay? So that's part of the reason for feeding them live foods, is so that their system will actually work. But we want to feed them foods that have the digestive enzymes in the food to help their system work the way they should. So when you sprout sprouts and you feed them at the perfect time, when there's a little tail and the amylase is the highest during that period of time when there's a little tail, you're feeding them optimum nutrition. All right? Now, after you've sprouted to the point where there's a little tail, you want to soak them, the sprouts, in a solution of 3% food grade hydrogen peroxide. Totally submerge them for about 15 to 20 minutes. This kills all the bacteria, fungus, everything. It even kills aflatoxins. It's better than vinegar. It's better than GSE. It literally destroys the bacteria without killing the nutrition. In addition, it's better than vinegar and GSE because it doesn't contain the histamines and salicylates that trigger feather destroyers. So that's an added plus. If you can't find it locally, you can find it online. If you can't find it online, you can go to exoticbirdclubonline.com, register as a member, and then put in the search engine sprouting, and a couple of articles on sprouting will come up that will completely explain to you how to sprout and what to use for sprouting. We don't sell it on our website, the food grade hydrogen peroxide, but we'll tell you where to buy it. We do sell the stainless steel screen lids. So if you can't find those, we have them for you. We also sell the 16 and 32 ounce jars if you can't find those, but they're really easy to find. You can find them in your grocery stores. You can even use jars that you've brought home from the grocery store, 16 and 32 ounce glass jars that maybe you've bought pickles or relish in or something like that, as long as they're wide mouth. Okay. These screens will fit any wide mouth 16 or 32 ounce jars. Not any, but pretty much any. Okay. So the screens are like $1.28 or $1.30 on our website, I think. So they're really economical. You can also sprout in muslin bags, hemp bags, and then they're washable. Okay, so you can use those. You could wash them in the hydrogen peroxide for that matter. And the food grade hydrogen peroxide, by the way, is great to clean with. You can clean your bird room, you can clean your bird toys, you can run it through your dishwasher, you can use it to brush your teeth, you can use it as a mouthwash, diluted down. It's multi-use. It's expensive to buy. It's like 30 some dollars a quart, but then you buy it as a 35% solution, but you dilute it down. You only use 1/8 of a cup to a gallon of water, and you dilute it down. So it goes a long, long way. And the benefit to this, like I said, is that it doesn't trigger feather destroyers. Like vinegar will trigger feather destroyers. GSE will trigger feather destroyers because of the histamines in it. This doesn't have any histamines. Hydrogen peroxide doesn't have any histamines, so it doesn't trigger feather destroyers. So it's a great all-around cleaner. It's a great all-around disinfectant. It's great to use for sprouting. It's great to clean off your produce when you bring it home. You can just dip spray your lettuce in it, with it. Dip your fruits and vegetables in it, and then rinse them off real quick. But for sprouts, you want to submerge your sprouts for 15 to 20 minutes, then rinse them 2 more times in the hydrogen peroxide. Okay? So again, you would buy 35% food grade hydrogen peroxide, use 1/8 cup to a gallon of water, use that solution to submerge your sprouts for 15 to 20 minutes, then rinse your sprouts 2 more times. Please don't use tap water, not in the United States anyway. It's full of chemicals. Use reverse osmosis water or Fiji or Evian water, something like that. And then your sprouts are ready to eat. Now you can store your fresh sprouts in your refrigerator for 2 to 3 days. Rinse them every time before you feed them to your birds, or you can gently dehydrate them. What I mean by gentle dehydration is that you do not want the inside of the food to reach over 105 degrees. Now some people will say, oh, you can't dehydrate over 105 degrees. Go to Excalibur.com. They'll explain it to you in their files. It's the inside of the food you don't want to reach over 105 degrees. That usually means setting your dehydrator at 110 to 115. Because of the airflow inside of the dehydrator, the food the temperature inside of the food doesn't usually reach over 105 degrees. You set your dehydrator at 105 degrees, the food on the inside is going to be much cooler. And you think, oh, well, cooler is better. Not necessarily so. If the food doesn't reach a certain temperature, if it dehydrates too slow, it'll begin to grow mold. especially in the cooler parts of the country. So the food has to reach a certain temperature inside in order not to grow mold spores. So it gets a little tricky. It has to reach a certain temperature on the inside so it doesn't grow mold spores. But you don't want it to reach too hot of a temperature on the inside, or it'll start to kill the digestive enzymes. So you have to kind of know what you're doing. So you actually want to set your dehydrator at about 110, 115 degrees, so the inside of the food will dehydrate at about 105 degrees. And that way you can be sure that it's not growing mold spores on the inside of the food, especially if you're in a colder climate or a humid climate, okay? So anyway, you can preserve your food, losing only the moisture if you gently dehydrate it, and then once it's dehydrated, you can store your food for up to a year in an airtight container. Just make sure that that airtight container, if it's plastic, is PET plastic, which is FDA approved, and BPA free. So you're not using a carcinogenic plastic. It's like usually like a number 4 or a number 5 plastic. If you look on the bottom of the plastic, there'll be a little triangle with a 4 or a 5 in it, and that means it's a safe plastic to use for food storage. So that's pretty much all there is to it. It's really pretty simple. We're a company, so we sprout in much larger equipment than this. But when I'm sprouting personally for my flock, I might use a 16 or 32 ounce jar like this. But we use much larger equipment than this to sprout for, bulk. But pretty much the same principles apply. We use some proprietary methods we don't share with the public, but these are good methods to use for your personal flock. So thebestbirdfood.com is where you can find the screens and the jars. Exotic Bird Club Online is where you can find the articles on how to sprout. I hope this has been informative, and happy foraging!